most unforgiving waters on Earth, survival is not merely a matter of strength. It is a matter of profound, generational intelligence. This is a Type B 1 killer whale pod, and they have calculated the exact physics required for a siege. They do not strike the ice. They weaponize the ocean itself. By aligning their bodies and accelerating precisely, they manufacture a localized tsunami. A masterclass in fluid dynamics. The physical barrier is destroyed. The prey is now in their domain. There is no frenzy here, only calculated, methodical execution. The matriarch dictates the pace, ensuring the prey is exhausted before closing the trap. A rapid, efficient conclusion. The energy expenditure is immediately rewarded. To thrive in this hostile arena requires absolute mastery of the environment. The Antarctic Peninsula, a biome defined entirely by its extremes. Here, the temperature of the water hovers just below the freezing point of fresh water. It is an ecosystem that locks down in winter, only to violently fracture during the brief summer melt. Below the ice, the parameters of survival change entirely. For the ocean's apex predators, navigating this labyrinth relies heavily on acoustics. The melon acts as an acoustic lens, focusing high-frequency clicks into a biological sonar beam. They read the returning echoes with absolute precision, mapping the shifting topography of the ice. Knowledge in this pod flows in one direction, from the matriarch downward. The calf rides the hydrodynamic wake of its mother, a vital strategy to conserve heat. Wrapped in a dense layer of blubber, their internal temperature remains a steady 37 degrees Celsius. From above, their dark backs blend into the abyssal depths. From below, their bright underbellies vanish against the sunlit ice canopy above. Perfect countershading. But the environment is never static. The geography of the Antarctic is in perpetual, violent motion. Every shift in the ice alters the acoustic landscape and the distribution of life. Unfazed, the matriarch leads her bloodline through the chaos. She has memorized these tectonic shifts for decades. Her visual and acoustic memory is the pod's most valuable asset. She knows which ice will hold prey. To sustain animals of this sheer mass, hunting must be continuous and highly organized. Yet, the foundation of this predatory supremacy relies entirely on organisms they will never see. The cold, nutrient-rich upwellings fuel colossal blooms of microscopic life. It is a delicate, interconnected web, spanning from the microscopic to the monolithic. And to understand the masters of this domain, we must follow them down into the ecological engine room. The surface provides only a fraction of the story. The true battle for survival is waged far below the light. In a world governed by crushing pressure and freezing darkness, the matriarch brings her pod down to the hunting depths. Their lungs compress, oxygen is hoarded in their deep muscle tissue. Passing through the thermocline, the temperature drops further. The density of the water shifts. Here, sound travels 4 times faster than in air. The pod operates as a single, distributed sensory network, spanning miles of ocean, while the surface world remains ignorant of the maneuvers beneath. Every entry into the water is a calculated risk. The ocean is a hyperconductive medium for sound. No movement goes unnoticed. But the matriarch is highly selective. Energy efficiency dictates their prey choices. They require high-yield, fat-rich targets to sustain their colossal biological engines. The calf is watching, logging every decision, every acoustic signature of the hunt. The transfer of this cultural knowledge is the sole reason the pod survives the harsh seasons. Without the matriarch's memory, the shifting labyrinth of ice would become a frozen tomb. They swim past the vast, drifting swarms of krill. The krill is the lifeblood of the Antarctic, drawing in titans from across the globe. The matriarch detects a shift in the acoustic landscape. A larger presence, a new target has been identified, one that requires a completely different tactical approach. It is a solitary minke whale, navigating the open channels. The siege tactics of the ice floes are useless here. This will not be a game of fluid dynamics and patience. In the open ocean, it becomes a brutal test of sheer aerobic endurance. The minke whale is fast, built for sustained high-speed flight. The pod must run their prey to the point of absolute physical collapse. The pursuit begins. The pursuit plunges into the abyss, leaving the sunlit surface behind. But to understand the stakes of this chase, we must examine the battlefield itself. The Antarctic Ocean is not an empty void. It is a dense, living soup. Deep oceanic upwellings act as a biological conveyor belt. They drag vital minerals from the crushing depths, forcing them upward until they collide with the frozen ceiling. Where these deep-sea nutrients meet the fragmented summer sunlight, a microscopic ignition occurs. Ice algae blooms in colossal quantities, clinging to the underside of the floes. This simple, single-celled organism is the foundational currency of the entire ecosystem. And it draws in the true engine of the Antarctic, Eupausia superba, the Antarctic krill. Individually, they are no larger than a human finger. Collectively, they form a biomass that outweighs the entire human population. Swarms can stretch for kilometers, moving in highly synchronized fluid patterns. They graze relentlessly, converting microscopic plant life into high-density protein. Their sheer numbers alter the visual and physical properties of the ocean itself. In an environment entirely devoid of terrestrial vegetation, this floating protein sustains the migration of giants. Baleen whales travel across the globe to gorge in these temporary summer pastures. But such dense concentrations of life also create profound acoustic challenges. Billions of krill bodies act as a biological sound baffle, scattering and absorbing sonar. Combined with the chaotic, highly reflective surfaces of underwater ice formations, the Antarctic becomes a disorienting hall of acoustic mirrors. Sound bounces unpredictably. Echoes overlap, creating false signatures and phantom topographies. In this sensory fog, a hunted animal has a singular advantage. If it can remain silent and use the acoustic clutter to hide, it can simply vanish. The killer whale pod has lost their acoustic lock on the minke whale. The matriarch calls off the pursuit. Blind, high-speed chases consume too much vital oxygen. The hunt must transition from a test of speed to a game of tactical patience. The minke whale is a mammal. It must inevitably return to the surface to breathe. The matriarch knows this. She calculates the oxygen capacity of her prey against the available open water. In heavy pack ice, breathing holes are rare and heavily guarded by the frozen geography. They form a perimeter around the most logical exit point, and they wait. The minke whale is somewhere below, its lungs burning, navigating the acoustic maze. The environment itself becomes an active participant in the hunt, an unforgiving arena where the slightest miscalculation in physics or biology carries fatal consequences. The Antarctic ecosystem is built on these silent, invisible parameters, from the macroscopic desolation of the ice shelf to the microscopic fury of the biological engine that powers it. Here, patience is a weapon as deadly as brute force. The tension beneath the ice is absolute. The endurance game is reaching its limit. The disturbance was merely a fragmented block of ice, shifting from the pressure below. The minke whale has outmaneuvered the ambush. By locating shallow depressions under the ice, the prey has found trapped pockets of oxygen. It has breathed without ever breaking the surface. The trap is compromised. The matriarch does not waste energy on a failed strategy. The pod regroups. With the hunt aborted, the acoustic discipline relaxes. The silence is broken. Killer whales possess one of the most complex social structures of any mammal on Earth. Unlike most predatory packs, the males of this ecotype never leave their mothers. They remain within the matriarchal bloodline for their entire, decades-long lives. The matriarch's brain possesses a highly developed paralimbic system. This expanded neural network processes social intelligence and emotional memory on a level rarely seen in nature. To maintain this lifelong bond, communication must be precise and highly localized. They produce sound by forcing air through specialized nasal structures called phonic lips. By controlling two sets of phonic lips, they can echolocate and communicate simultaneously. It is an intricate, mechanical process that takes the calf years to master. But the calf is not just learning how to make sound. It is learning a highly specific language. Every killer whale pod possesses its own unique acoustic dialect. A linguistic signature that identifies exactly who they are and from which bloodline they descend. In an ocean populated by hundreds of different pods, this dialect is a critical survival mechanism. It prevents inbreeding and dictates territorial boundaries without the need for physical conflict. The matriarch detects an approaching acoustic signature. A rival intelligence is navigating the same frozen corridor. In a highly competitive ecosystem, a sudden meeting of apex predators can be volatile. But the matriarch reads the visual and acoustic data instantly. This is a Type C pod. They belong to a completely different evolutionary branch. The ocean is partitioned not by fences, but by highly specialized dietary niches. Type C killer whales are strict fish eaters. They do not hunt seals or larger whales. Because they do not compete for the same prey, there is zero ecological conflict. The dialects have done their job. The genetic and territorial boundaries are mutually recognized. A momentary intersection of two distinct cultures in the vastness of the Southern Ocean. The pod resumes its journey. They are moving away from the coastal ice shelves. The landscape is opening up. The protective acoustic maze of the ice is ending. They are entering the pelagic zone, the open, deep ocean. This is a different arena, one that requires a completely different set of rules. The minke whale they lost in the ice labyrinth has nowhere to hide out here. The open water offers no cover, No trapped pockets of air beneath frozen ceilings. It is a vast, unforgiving void where survival is measured strictly by stamina. For the young calf, this is the ultimate test of endurance. The pod operates as a unified biological machine, managing the energy expenditure of its weakest member. Somewhere in this vast expanse, the minke whale is running. The matriarch switches her acoustic strategy. She is casting a sonar net that spans miles. She is waiting for the faintest echo of solid mass to return from the void. By riding the ocean swells, they conserve vital calories for the impending pursuit. As the brief Antarctic day begins to fade, the visual world collapses. Vision becomes useless. The hunt will now be conducted entirely in the dark, a world illuminated only by the faint chemical fires of bioluminescence. A microscopic echo has returned. She fires a targeted acoustic burst to confirm the distance and trajectory. The lock is established. The target is moving fast, parallel to their position. The minke whale is forced to surface for oxygen, giving away its exact physical coordinates. The element of surprise is gone. This is a pure, unrelenting chase. The adult male, boasting the highest top speed, takes the lead to close the gap. The minke is built for sustained flight, capable of maintaining over 20 knots. The tactic is not to strike, but to pace, to force the prey into a state of panic. Panic increases the minke's heart rate, burning through its oxygen reserves at an unsustainable rate. The pod operates in 3 dimensions. As one member crowds the flank, another blocks the deep descent. Every change in direction costs the minke precious kinetic energy. The calf observes the geometry of the hunt, the precise calculus of exhaustion. The pod rotates the vanguard position, sharing the hydrodynamic burden. They are systematically denying the prey any environmental sanctuary. The lactic acid is building. The physical collapse is imminent. The physical assault begins. A calculated, crushing weight applied to deny oxygen. By drowning the prey, the pod minimizes the risk of injury from flailing flukes. It is a brutal, systematic dismantling of the prey's aerobic capacity. The endurance arena yields a singular, inevitable, mathematical conclusion. The immense biological engine fails. The hunt is concluded. In the vast indifference of the open Southern Ocean, life is violently converted to sustain life. The energy extracted here will fuel the bloodline for days. It will provide the vital calories needed to navigate the treacherous labyrinth, and it will power the generational memory required to master the ice once more. In the ocean, nothing is wasted. The energy that fueled the pod now cascades downward. A whale fall delivers a century's worth of nutrients to the barren seafloor in a single moment. The chemical signature of the feast travels for miles along the deep-sea currents, drawing the abyss to life. Ancient scavengers, some over 400 years old, arrive to strip the bones. This single hunt will sustain a localized deep-sea ecosystem for decades. But the masters of this domain cannot remain in the depths. They are tethered to the atmosphere. Upon surfacing, they are met with a radical shift in atmospheric pressure. A katabatic storm. Dense, freezing air rolling off the polar ice cap at hurricane speeds. The wind shear tears the tops off the swells, turning the air itself into a freezing, suffocating mist. To avoid drowning in the aerated surface water, the pod takes shelter below the turbulence, but they must still breathe every few minutes. The storm brings a secondary, far more lethal threat. The wind is acting as a colossal hydraulic press, driving the pack ice together. Open channels that existed hours ago are now being violently erased. The pod is caught in the shifting labyrinth. The open ocean is being walled off. For the towering adult males, the shrinking vertical space becomes highly hazardous. The matriarch takes absolute control. Her acoustic memory is the only map out of the crush. Visual navigation is impossible. She relies entirely on the returning echoes. The calf is entirely dependent on its mother's hydrodynamic shield, a dead end. The shifting plates have sealed the corridor. Above them, a solid ceiling of frozen ocean stretches to the horizon. They have been submerged for 12 minutes. Oxygen stores in the blood are depleting rapidly. While the adults can survive for over 20 minutes, the calf's smaller lungs are burning. The matriarch identifies a potential fracture zone, a point of structural weakness. She weaponizes her massive 4-ton body, a devastating kinetic strike. But the winter ice is too thick. The strike fails. Panic sets in. The calf is running completely out of oxygen. The adult male forces the calf downward, overriding its panic with physical discipline. The matriarch recalibrates. She searches for the acoustic signature of trapped air. She finds it, a small, hollow cavity created by 2 overlapping ice tectonic plates. It is not open water, but a micro pocket of trapped atmosphere. She breathes, drawing the stale, trapped air deep into her massive lungs. She vacates the space, prioritizing the bloodline. The calf secures a critical, life-saving breath, a masterful display of social cohesion and environmental exploitation. Above the ice, the storm renders the continent entirely uninhabitable. Below, they have entered a state of extreme metabolic conservation. They drop their heart rates to a fraction of the normal rhythm. They will wait out the geological violence happening above them. Hours pass. The katabatic winds exhaust their momentum against the ocean. The shifting plates that sealed the labyrinth eventually pull apart. The environmental trap releases its grip. They emerge into the aftermath of the storm. The violent shifting of the ecosystem has forced the deep ocean nutrients back to the surface. The momentary chaos creates temporary oases of abundance. The pod resumes its patrol. They are apex predators, untethered by the microscopic feast. The trauma of the near suffocation is instantly forgotten, replaced by the deep social bonds of the family. To survive the Antarctic is to exist in a state of perpetual adaptation. The matriarch has mapped this labyrinth 1,000 times. Other predators watch them pass, keenly aware of the absolute hierarchy. The matriarch gauges the seal, a formidable opponent, but a low-yield target. The massive male requires only a signal. She declines. The energy required to kill a heavily armed apex predator is deemed biologically inefficient. Every decision is calculated. Every calorie is accounted for. The brief Antarctic summer is already beginning to wane. The days will grow violently short. The ice will begin to harden and expand. The ocean itself is preparing to lock down. The matriarch feels the shift in the temperature gradient. She reads the impending freeze. It is time to move the bloodline out of the deep pack ice before the continent seals itself shut. They will retreat to the outer edges of the sea ice, following the shifting perimeter of survival. The calf has survived its first season in the labyrinth. It carries the dialect into the future. The environment will test them again next year. The engine of the Antarctic will reset, and the ocean's deadliest masterminds will be waiting. Driven by physics, bound by blood, masters of the frozen end of the earth. The sun has vanished. For the next 4 months, the Antarctic Peninsula is plunged into the perpetual darkness of the polar night. The continent effectively doubles in size as the ocean freezes over completely. It appears devoid of all life. But beneath the ice crust, the apex predators remain. The matriarch has guided her pod into the deep winter. Visual hunting is now entirely impossible. They have transitioned into a world governed exclusively by acoustics and hydrodynamic pressure. Her lower jaw acts as an ultra-sensitive acoustic antenna, capable of picking up a heartbeat miles away. And miles away, in the heart of the frozen labyrinth, a distinct acoustic beacon is transmitting. A Weddell seal. To survive the winter, it must maintain a breathing hole by constantly sawing the encroaching ice with its teeth. It is a desperate biological necessity, but underwater, it rings out like a dinner bell. The matriarch intercepts the acoustic signature. She triangulates the origin of the sound with mathematical precision. The winter hunt requires absolute stealth. If the seal hears them coming, it will abandon the hole and vanish under the ice. Navigating the brinicle forests in pitch black requires intense spatial awareness. The calf, having learned the topography during the summer, now relies entirely on memory and trust. The Weddell seal is uniquely adapted to this isolation. Above the ice, it has no natural enemies. It feels entirely secure. But the danger lies solely beneath. The pod arrives, but the winter ice is over 6 feet thick. The wave wash tactic of the summer is useless here. The ice cannot be broken. They cannot reach the seal while it rests on the surface. They must force it into the water. The matriarch deploys a weapon of psychological terror, a concentrated blast of air and a deafening acoustic shriek designed to trigger pure panic. The seal abandons the hole, retreating onto the solid ice sheet. The first phase is complete. The seal is safe on the ice, but it is now cut off from its food source. It becomes a waiting game. The extreme cold of the surface will eventually force the seal back into the relatively warmer ocean. The pod possesses immense patience. They enter a low-energy state, preserving their oxygen. But time is a luxury neither predator nor prey truly has. The breathing hole is freezing shut. The seal faces a brutal ultimatum: freeze on the surface or run the gauntlet below. Biology dictates the plunge. The moment it hits the water, the acoustic stealth is broken. The chase is initiated. The Weddell seal is highly agile, capable of tight, erratic turns that the massive whales cannot match. It dives into the brinicle forest, using the complex topography as a shield. The sheer size of the adult male becomes a sudden disadvantage in the tight geometry. The matriarch takes the lead, her streamlined body navigating the maze flawlessly. The seal operates entirely on tactile feedback, its whiskers acting as hydrodynamic sensors. It locates a secondary fracture in the ice canopy, a potential escape route. The margin between survival and death is measured in milliseconds. The seal wedges itself into the fracture, just millimeters out of reach. Safe, but imprisoned in a frozen vice. The matriarch acknowledges the failure. The physics of the ice have protected the prey. She does not waste energy on frustration. The calculation resets instantly. Above, the polar night continues its absolute reign. The winter is a siege of starvation. Only the most adaptable will see the sun again. The pod resumes its patrol. Their biological furnace requires constant fuel. The bond of the bloodline is the only true warmth in the Antarctic winter. But the matriarch's acoustic net is always cast wide. A new acoustic signature, immense, slow-moving. The winter ocean is not entirely devoid of giants. A Somniosus antarcticus, the Antarctic sleeper shark, a relic of the deep, drawn upward by the scent of a long-dead carcass. It is a high-risk target. Its flesh is highly toxic to most marine mammals. But the matriarch possesses generational knowledge. She knows the toxicity is concentrated in the flesh. She knows the liver, however, is a massive, highly nutritious fat reserve. It is a surgical strike. They do not want the meat. They want the fat. By flipping the shark, she induces a state of temporary paralysis, surgical precision. They extract the high-density lipid prize and discard the rest. This single, massive influx of calories will sustain the pod for weeks, long enough to see the end of the long night. The calf continues to grow, fortified by the matriarch's immense ecological knowledge. They are the undisputed sovereigns of the dark. After months of total darkness, the solar engine reignites. The return of the sun triggers an immediate, violent reaction across the continent. The frozen ceiling shatters. The labyrinth opens. The bloodline has survived the siege. Fortified by the matriarch's memory, they are ready to dominate the brief, chaotic summer once more. The foundational cycle begins anew. The ocean's deadliest masterminds. The breaking of the ice initiates the greatest mass migration on the planet. Driven by biological clocks, terrestrial life returns to the fringes of the continent to breed. The solar energy triggers an exponential explosion in the foundational biomass. The transient giants return to gorge on the seasonal bounty. For the resident apex predators, the brutal geometry of survival yields to an era of abundance. The calf has passed the ultimate biological filter. It has survived the polar night. The hierarchy of the food chain is strictly observed. They ignore the foundational layers. Yet, the matriarch never ceases to observe, to map, and to catalog the shifting terrain. The return of the seals provides a highly efficient, fat-rich prey source. But hunting in the summer is not born of desperate starvation. It is an exercise in ecological balance. The matriarch initiates a complex tactical maneuver, a perfect execution of the wave wash strike. There was no prey. The strike was a highly coordinated simulation, an unparalleled display of cultural transmission. The matriarch is running drills. Play is the mechanism through which lethal perfection is honed. Without these apex predators, the fragile equilibrium of the Antarctic would collapse. They regulate the populations of mid-level consumers. By keeping seal and penguin numbers in check, they prevent the overgrazing of the krill. And the krill, in turn, sustain the biological carbon pump that regulates the planet's atmosphere. The killer whale is not a cruel tyrant, but a vital keystone, an intelligence perfectly shaped by the most hostile physics on Earth. The knowledge held within her brain spans generations, an unbroken chain of memory, mapping every freezing current, every acoustic trap. But the arena itself is changing. The parameters of the ice are shifting faster than biology can adapt. For now, the matriarch's genius holds the bloodlines secure. She will teach the calf the new map. She will pass on the dialect. To endure here requires more than just the instinct to kill. It requires an absolute, unbreakable synergy with the environment. In the frozen heart of the world, intelligence is the ultimate apex predator.